Hello and welcome to Americans Talk Australian Survivor. I'm Rachel.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Matt.
Thanks for joining us. We just watched episode 22 of Australian Survivor Titans vs. Rebels, and there will be spoilers ahead. Before we jump in, thank you to everyone who voted on the polls last week. We found out that the majority of our viewers thought that Ferris would play his idol for himself tonight. And in second place was Mark, and then Kirby was in third place for who was suspected to have the idol played for them. So that was a question that plagued us throughout this entire episode, so let's see if our viewers were right. We jump into episode 22 on the night after Kitty went home. Caroline says that she tried to make a move, but she missed when she played her idol for Mark trying to take out Ferris.
That had to be very hard for her to say.
Yeah, it was too bad. She seemed very disappointed, and it was a good effort.
And I imagine a bit awkward coming back and
Sure.
having to see Ferris.
Especially now that we're down to 5 people. You can't really hide from someone
No,
that
I don't
targeted.
think so.
Right, and this had to be so disappointing.
Meanwhile, Ferris says that he has had his idol for an entire month, and he's feeling really good about being in the majority and his next steps.
Congratulations. Wow,
Yeah,
that is a long time.
That is unbelievable and hasn't told very many people until this episode.
Yeah. He says he cannot see how this could go wrong, which are famous last words, typically. Although I will say we've been saying it episode after episode that Ferris and Kirby are getting too confident, and they're still around, so we'll see what happens.
So then the three of Kirby, Raymond, and Ferris are all together. And Ferris says, listen, Kirby, you win this next immunity. I have an idol. So he tells her he does indeed have an idol. And Raymond, well, you're just so sweet. No one's going to vote you out.
Yeah, they think they'll have the numbers, and they'll make it work.
Right, and Mark is the target.
So then the next day, we wake up, and Caroline and Mark are saying that they're on a sinking ship, and they want to take Kirby out.
So they decide to look for an idol, which
About time.
it seems like 2 weeks too late, but that's fine. Better late than never.
Yeah, Caroline found the last idol, and she used it right away, so there's a new one in place. So let's go look.
Right.
And Ferris has a wonderful plan, right? He wants to tell Raymond, all right, I'm going to give you my idol. We'll make it a fake idol. And then that way they'll see that you found the idol and they'll stop looking.
Yeah, so instead of making a look-alike idol to give to the other side, he's just going to wrap up his own idol and give it to Raymond, which is a different idea.
Right.
I think a good idea, though. You don't want to make a fake idol that looks fake.
Right, I think it's a good idea too, yeah. And they'll know that it's a fake idol. They've seen enough of them that they know that it's just not some beads on a string
Yeah.
that has worked in other seasons.
Yeah, so I think it's a good idea. Not how I would have used my idol to trick them, but very smart.
Right, and Ferris has no fear of not getting his idol back from Raymond.
Which I think makes sense. I mean, Raymond's,
Loyal.
yeah,
They're
and
friends.
he doesn't seem like someone who would steal an idol.
Right.
But Ferris says this will all come down to Raymond's acting, and we've seen him be an actor in the past, so we think he might be able to pull it off. So we see everyone out hunting in the woods for an idol. Ferris is telling Caroline, I'm out here looking too. And Raymond pulls something out of a tree. He puts it in his pocket, and Caroline's looking the other way, and Ferris goes, hey, look, Caroline.
Right. You didn't notice.
Yeah, so he draws a little bit of attention to it. And Mark says, I've walked past that fern a million times. So we're thinking, uh-oh, does he suspect it? But no, he believes that
didn't,
it's a
no.
real idol. And Mark is disappointed that he didn't get to it first.
And somehow Ferris did it again. I don't know how he did it. But then I was questioning about Kirby. So it looked like Kirby thinks that Raymond found a real idol. They didn't pull her in on that.
She wasn't in on that. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it was just Ferris and Raymond who made this plan. And so it's interesting that they'd leave Kirby out of it.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought for sure they'd tell her.
Right. I figured they would share everything.
Yeah. So congratulations, Raymond, on finding a fake idol. And congrats, Ferris, for pulling off a fantastic plan. So everyone stops idol hunting, and there's no longer a risk of anyone else finding a real idol.
So now it's really bad news for Caroline and Mark at this point.
Sure. Yeah.
It's one of them going home because basically the other three are pretty good.
Tight.
Right? Yeah.
Tight.
Yeah,
Right.
Ferris and Raymond both have idols, allegedly, and Kirby's planning on winning immunity.
She has so many times in the past Why not today?
Yeah.
So then we go right to the immunity challenge.
And JLP says that Kirby is the only one who has won immunity out of the 5 left standing.
Wow. Congratulations, Kirby.
Yeah, so Mark says that he's after it today. He says that he's looking forward to it, and we'll see if he can pull it off. So the challenge today is you have to drop a ball into a maze. You climb up on a ladder, you drop the ball, you have to time it out as it goes through the maze, and then you catch the ball at the end, and you put it back in at the top. So pretty simple to start with, but you end up having 4 balls total, and you have to run from the edge to pick up your ball, up the ladder to put it back in. It's all about timing.
And you can only touch 1 ball at a time.
Yes.
And so Ferris goes to counting, which is a great idea. How many seconds or how his counting is, probably seconds, does it take for the ball to get through the entire contraption and for him to run up the ladder and drop it again?
And then we see Raymond is clapping his hand around his thigh. That's his way of keeping the beat or the count.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a great idea. Then Ferris is using math to divide how many seconds he has in between balls. On the very first ball drop, we see Kirby immediately drop her ball right after her first one. It looks like she was running out of time as JLP was counting down, and she gets her first ball out, and it looks like she's about to drop her second ball, and she catches it like seconds, like right before, inches before it hits the ground. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, fantastic,
Very,
right?
very athletic move.
Yeah. And then she gets it down a little bit. Everyone seems to be doing okay. And everyone's hustling up and down the ladder, and Caroline is the first one out of the challenge. So good effort by her. And then we're running, and Kirby drops out of the challenge. She's the second one out. And it's very disappointing because she really needed this immunity win, and it was too bad that she missed it.
She accidentally put two close together.
Yeah.
And didn't have the timing to get between them. It's not like she caught it and dropped it. She just didn't have the time.
Yeah, so we thought that as a coach, she might be a little bit more in tune with planning and thinking ahead. And unfortunately, just the way that things worked out, it didn't happen for her today.
And then Raymond was dropped his ball. He kind of said, "I'm out."
Yeah, looked like he dropped it from the top, like he didn't
Right.
put it in the...
He knew that he had to get back to catch the next one, so he was hurrying to get up the ladder, and he didn't go all the way and didn't put it in the top gutter before it could drop. So then it dropped on the ground. So there's no way that he could get down the ladder, pick up the ball, put it in the gutter, and get over and catch the one that was coming out.
Makes sense, yeah. Well, so then it comes down to a showdown between Ferris and Mark. And Ferris is counting, and Mark's face is red. They're sprinting, and it just looks crazy. It looks very...
Ferris was exhausted.
looks unsustainable for too long, and we're thinking, who's going to drop first?
But Mark seemed to still have a lot of energy. Did you notice that? He didn't seem to be slowing down like Ferris was.
Right. He was getting winded, gassed.
Gassed, yeah.
So Ferris is counting, but unfortunately his counts get messed up, and he drops a ball, and Mark wins his very first immunity
Right. Challenge.
Challenge. So
Yeah, that is-
congratulations to Mark, right?
That is so cool that he did it. And then they have this sad music, and everybody, like it's the end of the world practically, the way the music was, because Kirby was so hoping to win.
Right. But Mark was just his pure joy on his face.
Right.
Just so happy that he just saved himself. Meanwhile, Ferris looked like he was just about, he was sweating. He was just trying to keep his breath going. He was crouched down. Leaning down. It was just something else.
Right.
It really winded him this challenge, and they both put in a great effort, but Mark did fantastic. He said he needed to win, and he won. And it seemed like it really meant a lot to him. We've been hearing before in the previous episode that he's always come close and he just hasn't won, and it would really mean a lot to him to win. So it's awesome to see at the final 5 when it mattered the most, when he was about to go home, he got it.
Yes, it was wonderful.
And when Jonathan's giving out the necklace, it looks like Raymond gives like one little clap, but no one else is really celebrating
Right.
with Mark. Everyone's disappointed that it wasn't them, but congrats, Mark.
Well, they gave him some fist bumps as he walked away, and
So that's something, I guess.
Caroline congratulated him after.
Yes.
Yeah, that was nice.
So she should be happy.
Right, but that just puts her closer to the chopping block when he
Right.
wins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Caroline was happy that it wasn't Kirby, but I don't know. Now it puts her as a target. So back at camp, we see Ferris immediately go up to Mark and tell him that he has an idol,
Oh.
which is weird that he would announce that today. so close to the vote. And I guess he's just kind of planting the seeds, like, don't vote for me because I have an idol. So let's make my vote count.
And then Mark talks to Ferris and says, if you bring Kirby to the final 2 or 3, you will look like a mad person.
Yeah, so Mark says, do not bring Kirby. It would be a bad move. And everyone's talking about the final 2, so I guess it's only 2 this season. We had thought final 3. I think that's what they typically do, but I guess it's final 2.
Right. So that's good. It's good that we know now.
Yeah.
Right. And not a surprise.
Yeah. So they must tell the players at the beginning of the season or something.
Sure.
I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, so now Mark is planting these seeds into Ferris's mind that you do not want to take Kirby with you to the end. And now Ferris is saying, I don't actually know if I can beat Kirby because she's made so many public moves and he's made a lot more private, behind the scenes moves.
And then Raymond, who tells Ferris, hey, Kirby has to go. I'm like, what? Raymond?
Well, there's definitely no way that Raymond could beat Kirby. But I don't know. Raymond hasn't talked about his end of the game strategy. He hasn't said who he wants to sit next to. He hasn't really said who he thinks he can beat. He's been very quiet about all of this.
Which leads you to believe that maybe he doesn't have a strategy.
Or they're not showing it to us, right?
It could be.
So interesting that he wants Kirby out because it doesn't sound like Kirby was really a threat to his game necessarily since he doesn't have a plan that he's vocalized.
And then we see Kirby talking to Mark. Kirby says no one wants to sit with me at the end. And so she knows it.
And she thinks Ray's the swing vote.
Yeah. So Caroline and Kirby are talking. They said basically it's me or you. They're both a little bit disappointed that this is how things turned out. Especially thinking back to how they were going to have an all-women alliance that doesn't look like it's happening. So they're disappointed, but sort of resigning to the reality of the situation. So Kirby says she's not going to give up. She thinks that Raymond is a little bit unpredictable, and he's going to be the swing vote. So she pulls Ferris aside and says, if you vote me out, you're next, and Mark and Caroline are going to be at the end. So
makes a good point, right? I mean, It seems logical. Why would you keep, if you don't have Kirby in the game, why would you keep Ferris in the game? Because he seems like the second logical person to win.
Right. And it's Rebels versus Titans. The Titans are going to stick together. They're going to go down as the final 2, even though Caroline and Mark have been fighting throughout the season.
Right. I'd rather fight with her. Yeah.
Right. It seems to be kind of like the Kirby and Ferris and the Rebels. There's these 2 tight groups that have fought throughout the season, but in the end, they're each allies.
Right.
Yeah, so we can see that Mark and Caroline have never said that they want to beat the best, as Kirby has said. So Kirby has told Ferris, I want to take you to the final 2, and she said that a while ago. Mark and Caroline, meanwhile, have never really indicated that they want to sit next to Ferris, and why would they? I don't know if they could beat him. So Kirby's definitely making some good points, and she says to Ferris, why don't you play the idol for me? That way everyone thinks that Ferris is playing the idol for himself. They're not going to put votes on him. So that way Kirby is safe because she's not sure that Raymond is going to stick to the plan. Ferris says he has to think about it. He has to think about all of his options. So it's a little bit non-reassuring for
Right,
Kirby.
which seemed like an odd reaction to me. Why not just say, sure, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then think your options through or something, you know?
Yeah, he said he needs to think of all the scenarios.
Right.
That's what he tells Kirby.
It just seemed like an odd reaction to, one of your best friends in the game.
Right.
I guess it makes sense, though, because as you were saying as we were watching it, Kirby could easily say, okay, why don't you play the idol for me, then go around and tell everyone, vote for Ferris.
Right.
And send him home. So
Right, so when we were watching, I said that Ferris should say, I'll give you my answer after everyone votes.
Mm-hmm.
So if he has any indication anyone's going to vote for him, which why would they? He has the idol. Then he could, that's what I would have said to her. I'll let you know.
Yeah. So Mark and Ferris are back talking, and Mark keeps bringing up the jury. He's saying, what's the jury going to think? They're going to see that you brought your biggest threat forward. You had a chance to get her out. So Mark is really playing up the jury vote. And Ferris says, Mark, would you take me to the top 3? Would you vote out? Did he want Raymond or Caroline gone? Either way, he wanted to be in the final 3 with Mark. And Mark says, I'm looking at him and I'm not blinking. And I said, yes. Which of course he's going to say yes.
And they shook hands.
Yeah. I mean, what else is Mark going to say? he wants Kirby out.
Yeah,
And
right.
he doesn't make a difference if he's lying to Ferris or not. I don't know why Ferris would think that would be real, but they shook on it. So
And Mark's a diplomat. I'm sure he knows about how to tell if someone's lying. He knows how to look like he's not lying. So I don't think you can trust Mark on this one. So meanwhile, Ferris and Caroline are talking, and Ferris says, will you vote out Mark tomorrow? And Caroline's like, oh, sure, of course.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't know if she's lying. Her voice did sound a little bit high, and we know from Kirby that that's the tell that Caroline has of when she's lying.
But why wouldn't she say that? Of course she's going to say that, or she's going to go home.
Right.
Right. So they have no reason not to lie.
Yeah.
well, and we were, Rachel, you brought up again about how before Kirby talked to Ferris a long time ago and said, let's make it the final two, the best against the best. So this wasn't brought up at the last minute. This was brought up, like you said, a while ago. So why would he trust Caroline and Mark all of a sudden? And we don't know if he will, but it was just interesting that he would even consider listening to them.
Right. You can't trust anyone who makes a promise for the final two or the final three at the buzzer. You have to trust the people who have been telling you for a while that they want to sit next to you, and for a good reason. Kirby has a reason to bring Ferris. Mark and Caroline are just saying whatever they need to get through this vote. So it's obvious to us on the couch, but I'm sure in real life you're thinking about your options. And Ferris, of course, does not want Kirby to win like we do. So that's another layer to it. So it seems like a very difficult decision out in camp.
And then we see Kirby, Raymond, and Ferris talking. First, Kirby says, what's the matter, Ferris? And he said, well, I went from the smiling assassin to the frowning assassin.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, no, is he going to vote for Kirby? So we don't know.
It just seems like an odd thing to say to your friend.
And then Kirby said something to Raymond, are you going to stick with the plan? And Raymond's like, yeah. And she said, well, that doesn't sound too reassuring.
Yeah.
So it's very awkward. I feel like Kirby must know that something's up, and we wish that she had known that the idol is fake because she needs to do something, and there's an idol out on the beach that she could find. But she, of course, is believing Raymond, because why wouldn't she? Why would she have any reason to suspect that that was fake?
Right. So had they told her, she could have gone out, looked for it, and changed the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, she even said that this vote tonight is going to determine the final two. And so it's a very, very important vote. She's not looking good in the eyes of Ferris and Raymond with their responses.
From what we see.
Especially to say you're going from smiling to frowning.
Right.
Why would taking out Caroline make you frown?
Right.
Why would you be frowning?
So then we go to tribal.
And automatically we see Ferris whispering to Raymond. They're talking about, well, if we take out Kirby now, like what's going to happen? And Raymond doesn't respond. It almost feels like Ferris uses Raymond as like a sounding board, like his verbal journal to like write out his thoughts and process his emotions, because Raymond doesn't really add much to the
I
conversation.
think Raymond's going to start playing his own game. I think he's done with Ferris. No? I feel like
I don't know.
I mean, after this vote, we're at the final four. It's almost too late to start playing.
Right.
I think he's thinking, I don't need Ferris anymore.
And he doesn't have very many things to say at the final.
But maybe it will
To the
come
journal,
out.
yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
So Kirby said, I was the only one keeping myself in the game. She's trying to, no one wants to take me to the end.
Yeah, no one wants to stand next to me. Yeah.
And then Ferris says, I'm not scared of you, Kirby, or of Kirby. I would not flinch if it was the two of us.
I think that was a really good comment to make, because prior to this, Mark is saying, it's all about timing. Caroline's like, you've got to get out the biggest threat in the game. And so they're really pushing for Ferris to vote for Kirby. And Kirby is playing to Ferris's confidence and his ego. And so she knows that Ferris wants to be the biggest threat there. So she's basically saying, you don't want to sit next to me because you're not confident in your game. He's like, oh, no, of course, I wouldn't flinch. So I thought that was a great move by Kirby. She really knows how to say things to get people to... she knows how to play a tribal council.
Yes.
And then Raymond starts speaking, and Ferris puts his necklace on. Jaden on the jury is laughing, and then Raymond's like, what's going on? And then he turns and sees that Ferris has the necklace on. He goes, oh, well, my conversation was boring anyway. But I just thought it was funny. Jaden's over there laughing.
I think Raymond thought he was laughing at him.
Yeah.
And then Mark asked Raymond to put his idol on, And Raymond's like, oh, I don't want to be too flashy. I'll do it later on.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting how he did that.
But it didn't really seem to raise that much of an issue with anybody. Nobody really seemed to think, oh, maybe he's lying.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've seen before that a lot of people don't put on their idols before they play it. So
Right.
it wouldn't raise too many, red flags. But it's too bad that Raymond didn't flip up there and say, oh, actually, I don't have one. And then they could have made a different plan to vote him out. But
I don't think they would have.
no, probably not. Everyone wants Kirby out.
And then Kirby, Jonathan said something about Caroline and Kirby because it's between those two. And Kirby said, I've been fighting the whole time. I won 3 immunities. And then Caroline's like, I've been fighting too. I might not have won the immunities, but I've still been fighting this whole entire game.
I've given 150% in the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's too bad that it's coming down to Caroline versus Kirby because they both have played really excellent games and they both deserve to be sitting at the finals. So it's too bad that they're pitting each other against them like that.
And meanwhile, Ferris looks like he's having an extremely difficult time at Tribal. Like, what is he going to do? What is he going to do? Mark says, don't do it, Ferris. Don't do it.
He's hyperventilating, it looked like.
Yeah, so watching him sit there in so much distress, it made us very worried that he was voting for Kirby because why would he be that emotional about voting out Caroline, someone that he hasn't really been close to throughout the game? So then it's time to vote, and we see everyone go up to the polls. It's time to play an idol, and Ferris stands up, and he makes a very long speech. He says that he and Kirby have been so close, and they've played such similar games but different. They've worked together, and we're thinking, wow, this is a great speech for him to save Kirby and say this idol is for Kirby. He tells everyone that Raymond found that idol. He blows up that plan, and we're thinking, okay, so he wants the jury to know that this was his plan to do the fake idol, and that way he can sit next to Kirby and kind of show this off. And then at the last minute, he says, no one has played the idol correctly this season, and I'm probably not going to play the idol correctly. I'm playing it for myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
you gotta be kidding me. He just, in my opinion, lost the game. He lost the game. Now it's Caroline and Mark in charge. That was a dumbest move.
Right. Unless Ferris wins immunity.
Yeah, so the idol is played for Ferris. We see Kirby had voted for Caroline, and every other vote went to Kirby, sending her home and putting her on the jury. So now the final 4 is going to be Caroline, Mark, Ferris, and Raymond. So who knows who would win the final immunity challenge? We know that it's typically an endurance-based challenge, going to be probably at the final 3 this time. And we really don't have anyone that's good at endurance. Maybe Mark.
But
Maybe.
Raymond has held his own on some of those. I don't know about endurance, but
Well, sometimes he drops out in 30 seconds, and sometimes he does.
very long.
He doesn't seem to like to be uncomfortable. And I bet when they have those pegs on their feet and all of that, I don't see him doing that well. So very interesting. I think if Mark wins, then he's taking Caroline to the final 3. He may even take Raymond because he knows he can beat him. And Caroline will probably take Mark or Raymond. I don't see anyone taking Ferris. So Ferris has to win the next 2 immunity challenges to make it to the end. And since he's never won an immunity challenge before,
It seems unlikely.
to get 2 in a row. So I don't know. I think he's the absolute biggest target, and no one wants to take him any further in the game.
I think that was the dumbest move he'd made tonight. The dumbest move. I'm so upset. I know it's a game, and I
Right.
know it was months ago for these players, but I really wanted Kirby and Ferris to sit at the end. And I think he just gave away $1 million to Caroline and Mark. And Mark and Caroline have played an excellent game also. Those 2 have been right there. And maybe I shouldn't say who we like, but I did like Kirby and Ferris. I really wanted to see them at the end. So I'm very, very disappointed. This was the worst episode for me.
No, I think it's fine to say that. So I had no reason to doubt that Kirby was going to take Ferris to the end, right? I didn't think that she was pulling a fast one on him. I think she really wanted to have the best against the best at the challenges. She thought those 2 were the best who were still playing. So he could have gone to the end with her,
Right.
but he must have thought that I'm not going to win against her.
But at least he'd get to the final 2. He's not going to get to the final 2 now.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he could have beaten Kirby, but I don't. To have a chance to win, you have to make it to the final. And if no one's taking you to the final two and you can't win the challenges, then what good does it do to be on the jury?
And we have seen before some winners were like, what? How did they win?
Yeah.
So you never know. At least both Kirby and Ferris deserve to win.
Right.
So, yeah, you like Rachel just said, you have to make it to the final two to win. And he just blew it.
Well, Ferris did make agreements with both Mark and Caroline.
But they're not going to honor it. Yeah, I guess I don't know that.
No.
I don't know
Right.
that, but I feel that
He's a persuasive guy.
he is.
It will be very interesting to see if Ferris can pull off a way to the final two, because I think if he gets to the final two, he has a big competitor in Caroline. That will be a tough one to show that he has beaten Caroline in the game. But if he goes with Raymond or Mark, I think he could snatch the win and get the title of sole survivor.
Well, I guess since
2
Mark and
episodes left.
Caroline don't have, you never know what's going to happen with those two, perhaps Ferris could make it to the final two.
I think he has to earn his spot. I don't think anyone's taking him. But we'll find out later this week.
2 episodes to go.
Well, Kirby, we're very, very sad to say goodbye to your Survivor
Excellent play.
play.
Yeah, she was a great player, and hopefully we'll see her again on another season in the future.
That would be wonderful. Maybe even have her a guest someday after our episodes are over here. Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, it would be, because I don't know. I think Kirby just really played an excellent game. It's just very sad to see her go.
Well, I wonder if her AFLW games are as exciting as her Survivor game. If anyone's been to her game, let us know. We'll have to check one out if we ever go to Australia. So what a start to the grand finale week. I can't wait to see what happens in the next 2 episodes.
Right.
I think it should be a real nail-biter of an end of a season. So it's been a great season this whole time, and they're not letting up now. They're making moves and surprising us all. So thank you for joining us today. You can follow us on Instagram at ATA Survivor, TikTok at ATA Survivor, and send us an email at ataustraliansurvivor@gmail.com. And let us know how you think Ferris can make it to the end and who the final two will be. See you tomorrow. Thanks.